Hello everybody, welcome back to class. This is our third day. Can you believe it? I feel like I literally just launched this podcast. I can't believe we're already 3 weeks in. That's kind of insane. Anyway, I'm so glad that you guys could make it to class today. This is gonna be probably a really fun one. This is definitely going to be very laid back and not as structured as most podcast episodes are and will be. You'll see in a minute what I mean by that, but yeah, I guess today is kind of like a Friday of the school week because I don't know, I feel like Fridays are always like really laid back days. Like the teachers are tired, they don't want to do anything, and all the students just want the weekend to be here. I feel like that's what today is. But before we get into any of the details of this podcast episode, if you're watching this, obviously you can tell that we are not in the podcast set. We took a field trip. Okay, we're not in the classroom anymore. No, I actually just couldn't film in my podcast set today, so we had to make do with what we got, but I feel like it's not really a big deal, and honestly, if you're just listening to this episode, doesn't really matter anyway. You can't even see me, so it's fine. Pretty much every other episode will in fact be recorded in my set. Just saying. Today's just like an off occasion. Not important. Anyway, that being said though, today I'm not really going to be teaching you about anything. We're actually just going to be going through the Google form responses. So if you guys saw the first episode or like the introduction video to this podcast, you would know that before I actually launched this podcast, I created a Google form that was like an quote-unquote application for this school, and I asked you guys a lot of questions. There was also like a lot of response questions where you had to type out something. So I thought it would be really fun to go through those responses. And in the introduction video, I did mention the fact that I could do a podcast episode where we were going through these things, and a lot of people really did want that. So yeah, that is what we're going to be going over today. Now, for anyone that does not know what the Google form responses is, basically a day before I launched the podcast, I released this application thing for Miraculous University, for the school. Essentially, it just asked a bunch of questions, and basically answering all that questions just ended up leading you to a link, and that link sent you to the podcast. So essentially, the quote-unquote application just gave you like early access to the channel, so you'd be able to be one of the first people to subscribe. Now, I find this really kind of funny because I think a lot of people got really confused, and I thought that the Google form was very simple and straightforward. Like, I really thought that people would actually understand why it was given and like the context of it, but a lot of people really didn't. They thought that by submitting this, they were actually submitting an application, and in order to be a part of Miraculous University, they like had to submit the application. That is not true. I still have people to this day being like, dang it, I didn't get the application, like your stories went away and I wasn't able to access it, like now I can't be a part. And I'm like, guys, you can still be a part of Miraculous University. Like I said, the only reason why the application was given was literally so that way people could have early access. Like, you don't have to apply to anything. The application was fake. Oh my god, you were not applying to anything by going through this form, and all of the parts where it's like you're accepted or whatever, like that was like pre-made. So it literally said that for everybody. Like, if you want to join, like you just have to subscribe, and like that's the whole point of this, was that at the very end it was like, in order to be a part of Miraculous University, you have to go to this link and subscribe to the channel. Essentially, I just wanted to create a fun little way for you guys to discover this channel, and because it was very school themed, the podcast is school themed, I thought it'd be super fun to create a fake application. And then after I made the application, I decided why not use this as a way to give people early access to the channel. So that is what I did. So once again, this is just a YouTube channel. You don't have to go through an application form to be a part of this. Like I said, the application was just a way to give you guys early access. Anyway, back to the episode. Like I said, I thought that the Google form was pretty straightforward and to the point in terms of that, but apparently that was not the case. So I'm sorry for anyone that was confused, but I've been really meaning to clarify that. I mean, now that the podcast has been out for a while, and it's been a while since the whole application thing came out, I don't think as many people are confused as they once were. But yeah, there are still people who are like, I missed the application, that means I can't join. I'm like, guys, that's not true. Anyway, but with that out of the way, we gotta move on, and we're starting with our our podcast updates. And actually, this podcast update has everything to do with the stuff that I brought up last time. So if you guys remember, in the podcast updates section of my last episode, we talked about the viewer name and class assignments. And then for your assignment for that day was to answer those questions so that way we could kind of decide how things are going. And I can now officially say that we have figured that stuff out. So anyway, that's just kind of the updates that we're talking about this time, just the viewer name and then the class assignments. So let's get into the updates, shall we? So the viewer name is Miracles, or Little Miracles. It was really tough because I feel like the responses were all over the place. Well, actually, I think we all collectively did not like senti heads or bug heads. I swore there were only like 10 people that said that, but I did genuinely see Miracles, Centibabies, and Amux so much. I feel like overall it was really, really close, but I think Miracles won by just a little bit. So that is officially our name. I think it's really cute. And it's not like overly senti related, in my opinion. As you know, like sentis and stuff, that's a really big part of this podcast. And so I kind of kept all of the names very senti related. Miracles isn't like the most, it's more Miraculous related than just senti related. But I mean, in representation, Cole gets mad. He's like, why were you having a kid and I didn't, blah, blah, blah. And Gabriel was like, I don't know, maybe it's a miracle.
That's unfair! Why should you be the one who gets to have a child?
Maybe it's a miracle.
So I felt like for that reason it was senti enough to be our name. But yeah, I really like that. If that wasn't your choice, I'm sorry. Majority rules. So that is our name. So anytime I address you guys, it's always gonna be Miracles, which I actually really like. I feel like that was genuinely one of the best options because I think we're all a miracle in our own little way. Moving on though, we have obviously class assignments. So the options were to have formal assignments like a Google form or a Google Classroom, or just having some like informal assignment that's just a prompt in the comments. And I got so much feedback and I'm really grateful for everyone that participated. Like, can I just say really quickly, there has been so much participation in terms of this podcast. That has been my favorite thing. Like, truly every single podcast episode has so many comments and it's everybody just doing their assignments and just talking about, you know, what's going on, answering the questions, and just like interacting with each other. I feel like this is a really beautiful community. I've been absolutely loving it. So just thank you for everyone that has been participating. It has made everything so much more fun. Anyway, but people really did give me their opinions on this and I'm so grateful for that. I did take into consideration pretty much what everybody said. Obviously, I couldn't go through every single comment, but I did go through a whole lot of them and I took everyone's opinions into consideration. And one thing that kept popping up over and over again was that having formal assignments would be a little bit too much and that we should really just try to keep our stuff just in YouTube and in the comment section. And I 100% agree because I think keeping things in the comment section really does help with community. Not to mention, like, you know, from a content creator perspective, comments really, really help to boost videos. So I feel like just keeping all of our conversations in the comments is also really good. And also, you know, having formal assignments, I feel like it really is doing too much because, mind you, like, this is a school and I do understand that a lot of people want it to be a little bit more like formal, but at the end of the day, this school is just like a fake version of the real thing. So anything that we do is just, once again, a fake version of the real thing. So just kind of taking all of that into consideration, we decided that obviously we're gonna have assignments, but they're not really gonna be like quote unquote like formal assignments. We're just gonna do prompts in the comments, just like how I did with the first episode. So at the end of every episode, I'm going to be giving you guys some kind of prompt. We're just going to be answering questions and writing paragraphs in the comments. However, I did want to kind of incorporate something that's a little bit more formal. And obviously, it wasn't just class assignments that we were deciding. We were also deciding on quizzes, and a lot of people did really like the idea of quizzes. One idea that I got a lot was that we keep assignments prompts in the comments, and then quizzes would be on Google Forms just as like a fun little thing. And that's definitely what I was thinking of doing, and so that's what we are doing. So yeah, assignments are prompts in the comments. I'm just going to give you something to talk about or something to write about, and then you write it in the comments. And then we're also going to have quizzes on Google Form. Now, mind you, these quizzes are just for kicks and giggles. You don't get a grade for them. If you get, you know, an answer wrong, it doesn't matter. It's just kind of to test your knowledge on what we're talking about. Like, that's literally the whole entire point. So for anyone that was like, I don't want to have a grade, like that's doing too much, like it's too much like a real school, don't worry, you don't have to worry about the grade. It's literally just for fun. So essentially the kind of schedule that we're going with is the assignment, or like the prompt that I'm giving you, is going to be given at the end of the episode. So after we're done talking about everything, there's going to be an assignment question, and then you guys will do the assignment in the comments. And then, like I said, we'll have quizzes on Google Form, and these are actually going to be given on Fridays at 12 p.m. MST. So episodes are released Sundays at 12 MST, 12 p.m. MST, and then the quizzes are going to be on Fridays at 12 p.m. MST. And these quizzes are going to be found on my community tab, so I'm just gonna I'm going to post a community tab, and the link to the Google form or the quiz will be at the very top. So yeah, if you want to participate in all of the quizzes, just make sure you stay tuned and watch out for my community tab, because that's where you'll be able to find it. Also, some other things that I just wanted to bring up is that quizzes are going to go over topics discussed during the video. So the quizzes aren't just going to be random questions like I did for the application process. They're not just going to be generic miraculous questions. It's going to be specific questions, or not specific questions, but specific things that we talk about in the episode. Like, for example, last podcast episode was about Felix and Kagami and Lukagami. So if we did a quiz for that episode, that's what we would be talking about. So the points and things that I bring up in that episode are going to be put into question form, and that's what you're going to be answering. I mean, the whole point of a quiz is to test your knowledge, and I want to specifically test your knowledge on the things that we've talked about. So essentially the whole idea is that we talk about whatever topic we want to talk about on Sundays, and then you have the whole week to review, rewatch the episode, whatever, and then on Fridays you'll be ready to take the quiz if you want to. Also, speaking of like prepping for these tests, the notes are just the slideshows that I present in these videos, will always be linked in the description. So you can basically use the notes to kind of just review what we talked about. So if you don't want to just rewatch or keep rewatching the podcast episode, you can just click the link and you can go to the notes and you can go through them yourself if you want to study for the test. Now, I would say that notes can't be used on the test, but I don't really have any kind of way to control that, because if I give you access to the notes, I can't like take it back, I think. So I'm just gonna count on you guys. I trust you guys to not cheat. Also, just wanted to put a little disclaimer out there that no one is obligated to do anything. This is all for fun. So if you don't want to do the assignment, it's fine. You can just watch the episode. If you don't want to take the quiz, it's fine. You don't have to. Like I said, we're not being graded. I'm not keeping track of the people that are doing these things. It's just for fun. Also, there will be no assignment for this episode because I think it's kind of pointless. Like, we're just going over Google form responses. I don't think it's that important that we do that. So yeah, but I think I am going to release a quiz though this week, and I think the quiz is just going to be on the Filagami and Lukagami stuff that we talked about last week, just because I feel like that's a really fun thing to kind of quiz you guys on. And obviously we didn't have any kind of idea of what the assignments and what the quizzes were going to be like, so I wasn't able to actually give you a quiz. So now that we have everything set in stone and we're not really talking about anything that's like quiz worthy in this podcast episode, I think we're just going to do a quiz on Lukagami and Filagami this Friday. So stay tuned for Friday, because that will be the first quiz, and I'm really excited to see how that stuff goes down. But with that being said, that is all the podcast episode updates, so we can continue on with the video. So like I said, today we are just going to be going over the Google form responses, and basically there were two short answer, well actually I think one was short answer, one was long answer, but there were two answer responses and then the rest were just picking and choosing, if that makes sense. So I wanted to go over the ones where you just pick and choose, and we can go over the analytics of that, and then at the very end we can go through actually like the answer responses. You'll see what I mean as we go. So okay, starting off with question one. The question was, if you could attend a school that only taught Miraculous Ladybug related things, would you? And the answers or the options were blue, which is duh, that's why I'm here, red, which is nah, and then yellow, which is I only came here because I was curious about what the link was. So we have a little pie chart on the left, and as you can see, unless you're listening to this then you can't see, 98.2% was blue, and then there's like this little sliver of yellow. No one actually pressed the red button. I was actually kind of surprised by that. I thought maybe a couple people would, but there's literally no red on this. So thanks guys, that's amazing. Although I will say that's probably just because anyone who clicked on the link and didn't want to fill out the response, they didn't answer any of the questions, they just left. So that's probably why the nah one isn't really used, but you know, whatever. But anyway, 98%. That's only like 2% that said I only came here because I was curious about what the link was. So everyone was really hardcore into this, which I really like that. The next question was, how confident are you that you can succeed at this university? This was just like a fun, silly question to add into the whole like fake application thing. I think 5 was like, yes, I could 100% succeed at this, and then 1 was like, no, I couldn't. And actually 1 and 2 tied at 14, which is 0.7%, and then 3 is slightly higher, well, not even slightly higher, it's actually quite a bit higher at 178, and then 8.3%. So only 178 were like, yeah, maybe. I love you guys. I think you guys are my favorite. Actually, you know what? I think the 1 and 2 are my favorite. Like, at least we're being honest here. And then 4 was 644, which is 29.9%. So pretty good amount that said 4, which I also respect you guys. I feel like it's more realistic to be like, nah. Anyway, majority was 1,302 with a whole 60.5%. So a whole 60% of you guys really, really, really believed that you could succeed at this. And you know what? I also admire you guys. I love the confidence we have. And it's not even like false confidence because I know y'all can do it. Also, I think I forgot to mention this, but I did get a little over 2,000 responses. So there's kind of a lot to go over. Anyway, question 3. I think a lot of people did tell me this was the hardest question. And I'm just asking Ladybug or Cat Noir. Yeah, it is kind of a diabolical question. I'm sorry for making you guys choose. But you guys did choose. And I'm not at all surprised by the response. So we have blue, which is Ladybug, and then we have red, which is Cat Noir. And the pie chart over here says that 69.2% is Cat Noir and 32.8% is Ladybug. Not at all surprised. Question 4 was... This one actually kind of took me out for one reason and one reason only, and it's Ladrian. But getting into the actual like analytics, best love square ship. So we have blue, which is Lady Noir, red, which is Adrianette, yellow, which is Marisha, and green, that is Ladrian. Okay, so starting off with Lady Noir, which is blue, like I said, it's a whole 43.5%, which is actually the lead. Lady Noir won by not a lot. Like, I mean, I know Lady Noir is the most favorite ship, so I knew it was going to be high, but I don't know, I felt like maybe it was gonna win by like a landslide, but I feel like these are all pretty close, to be honest. Anyway, next is Adrianette, which is red, like I said, 34.7%, which is just about 10 below Lady Noir, which is kind of disappointing, y'all. Adrianette is literally dating. Why are we choosing Lady Noir over Adrianette? I'm kidding. Yellow is Marishat with just 21%, and then very lastly is Ladrin with 0.9%. Only 19 out of 2,000 people said Ladrian. Y'all, I knew that we all collectively hated Ladrian, but that was insane. When I was first going over this, I could not stop laughing because, like, if this isn't just proof of just how much the fandom hates Ladrian, I don't know what would. Oh, it's funny. I mean, like 43, 34, 21. There's a pretty big difference, but for the most part, it's like slightly similar. But to go from like 21% to 0.9, that's not even 1%. No, that's actually so bad. Moving on though. Question 5 was, the season 6 animation is better than the old animation, and I have to say I was genuinely really shocked by the overall response to this, because this is another 1 through 5 kind of question. So 1 is disagreeing and 5 is that you agree. So if you clicked 1, you think that the season 6 animation is worse than the old animation, but if you click 5, you think the season 6 animation is better. And basically, due to the response that I've just seen on social media in general, I thought that 1 would be in the lead and 5 would be really low, but no, 5 is actually winning. So anyway, 700 people with 32.8% said 5, which means that they 100% believe that the season 6 animation is better than the old animation. 4 was 640, 29.7%. 3 was 541, 25.1%. 2 was 164 with a 7.7%, and then 1 was only 101 with 4.7%, which is really shocking because everyone absolutely hates the season 6 animation. They love the old one. At least that's all I ever see on social media and like comment sections and stuff. So the results were very shocking, to say the least. But I'm glad that the group of people that we have in this community prefers the season 6 animation. We're such a nice little cute community over here. Question 6 is kind of a controversial one. It is Chloe deserves a redemption arc. So blue is absolutely and red is no way. So once again, we have another pie chart, and red is 44.7%, which is no way. So 44.7% of people believe that she does not deserve a redemption arc, and 55.3% believes absolutely she does. So I feel like the results were genuinely like very similar. Like it's almost half, but just slightly more people believe that she should, which I feel like is pretty good representation of the fandom. I think we're pretty split, but I think overall a little bit more people believe that she should. So yeah, not really surprised by that one, but probably not really good for this community because I hate Chloe. I think a lot of you guys know that, so sorry to the 55.3% of you. Next question is kind of similar to the last one, but about Felix. So this one says Felix deserves his redemption arc. We actually have 3 options for this one. So we have blue, which is 100% he deserves a second chance. Red, which is yes, but he still needs to be held accountable for his actions. And then yellow is no, he's the worst. And so going over to the pie chart, red actually won. The results came out to 58.7%. So 58.7% believe that yes, he does deserve his redemption arc, but he still should be held accountable for all of his past actions. And then the second one was blue, which is 40.7%, which is people just saying that like yes, 100% he deserves a second chance. And then yellow actually only got 0.7% with a whole 14 people saying that. So only 14 of you guys said that he was the worst. And I actually really love the results on this one. Also, can I just say really quickly, just because like we were just talking about Chloe and then now we're talking about Felix, I just saw a comment today of somebody saying they shipped Felix and Chloe. Never in a million years have I ever heard of that ship. Obviously, I mean, I've heard of the ship between Adrian and Chloe, but Felix? Yeah, that was a first for me, and it was kind of wild, not gonna lie. And like they were saying like, I love Felix and Kagami, but like Felix and Chloe is where it's at. I was like, what? That was insane. Felix is literally Chloe's biggest hater. Have you not seen all the interactions Felix has had with Chloe? He hates her guts. And like in emotion, she was the first one to go. Out of everybody, it was like, no, Chloe's out of here. Which, I mean, kind of a side rant, but also not. I know Chloe isn't a Senti, but for a really long time it was always theorized that she was one. I never believed that she was a Senti, but in a way I kind of honestly liked the idea of her being a Senti, strictly because Felix hates her. Like, Felix is all about saving the Sentis, so I just kind of like the idea that he's always up to save them, but like he doesn't care about Chloe. Like, yes, love, protect, save the Sentis, but actually screw Chloe. I don't like her. I don't know. I think it's so funny. Anyway, that was off topic. Moving on. Question 8 was Philogami is the best side ship in Miraculous. This is another 1 through 5 question. So 1 is Philogami isn't the best ship, and then 5 is that they are. These results were kind of triggering. I mean, don't get me wrong. More people definitely like Philogami than not liking Philogami, obviously. But like, this is my space and this is like my channel. So the fact that there are people here that just don't like Philogami, we have some beef. Okay, we have beef. I'm kidding. No, but 5 is actually at a whole 994 with a 46.2%, which I think out of all of the 1 through 5 questions we've gotten, this is the one that has the most on 5. So clearly we have a group of people that really, really love Philogami, which makes me so happy. 4 was 609 with 28.3%, so it's a pretty big drop. 3 is 389 with 18.1%. Like, there's a pretty good amount of people that are like average. And then 2 is 106 with a 4.9%, and then 1 is 54 with the 2.5%. So there's not a lot of people that disagree, but there are still people there. One should be 0, to be honest. No one should have put 1. No, but Filagami truly is the best ship. Question 9 was best Kwami. Now this was kind of a controversial one, only because people were like mad that there were only 3 options, and I just wanted to come on here and say that the reason why there is only 3 options is because with my podcast, there's a theme, and the theme is basically Tiki, Plag, and Dusu. So I was trying to keep the questions very my podcast centric. So anyway, that's why I only picked 3 to be shown. So I'm sorry about that. 39.1% said Tiki with 842 people picking that. Dusu, y'all, Dusu got the worst one with only 484 people picking it. It's at 22.7%. See, this is exactly why I created this school, because people don't like Dusu. They don't like the Peacock Miraculous, and I'm like, why? It's literally the best one. It's the coolest one. And controversial, I know, but I think Dusu is the best looking one. They're so pretty, are you kidding? Like, the feathers? Actually, I just think peacocks are one of the prettiest animals out there. But anyway, that is why this school is created. Because I'm getting you guys to learn things, and in return, by learning things, you're gonna start liking things that you didn't like before. You know, by the end of this podcast, Dusu will be your favorite Kwami, and the Peacock Miraculous will be your favorite Miraculous, just saying. Anyway, Plag won by a landslide. So Plag got 1,500. I mean, it's understandable, like, he is one of the best Kwamis. Probably is the best Kwami. I love his personality. Okay, anyway, that was literally the end of all of the, like, normal questions that I asked you. So now it's time to get into the actual, like, long form answer. I think I already said this, but there was like one short form answer and then one long form answer. So this right here is the Google form response, and like I said, there are 2 questions that I asked that had to do with responses. The first one was, what's your favorite season of Miraculous and why? And then the second one was, what is your most controversial opinion when it comes to Miraculous? That is the juicy stuff. That is the juicy stuff right there. Anyway, so as I mentioned, there are 2,000 responses, so there's no way that I can go through every single thing. That's insanity. I physically could not do that. We do not have the time for that. So basically what you can do is you can put a Google form response into Google Sheets, and so there's just this whole like sheets thing of every single response. And so basically what I did was I put them all into this sheet, and then I like scroll down to the very bottom, and it tells me how many responses there was, which there are 2,154 responses. So basically what I did was I decided to pick a random number generator, and we are going to be using that. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to generate a couple numbers, and then we're going to go to that bar in Google Sheets and then just read off those responses. I felt that, you know, choosing like a random number generator was a lot more fair than just me like looking through only the top answers or only the bottom answers. So yeah, we're not going to be able to get through every single one of them, and I'm so sorry, but we're going to try to get through as many as we can. And with that being said, let's generate the first number. Okay, 1,585. Okay, so in terms of the question, what's your favorite season of Miraculous? They said 4 because we got Sassy and Cat Noir, and I love the Lady Noir in that season. I feel like that's kind of controversial to say. Like, specifically the Lady Noir in that season, because they were just fighting up a storm. Ladybug is kind of being mean to Cat Noir, and Cat Noir is being so pushy. Like, their dynamic is so weird that season. But I do agree with the Sassy Cat Noir. That man's attitude in that season will forever be my favorite thing. And then in terms of the most controversial opinion is that they said, when I see a lot of people talking about how Luca fits Chloe, like hell nah. You are my favorite person. Oh my gosh. Thank you to the random generator for bringing me this person, because yes, I'm not even kidding. I think they are one of the worst ships in the world. That being said, next one is 1,341. So first of all, with the favorite season question, we have, mine is probably season 4 because of all the superheroes, but it might change into season 6. I also feel like that one is kind of controversial because everyone always hated all the superheroes being there, and controversial opinion is Zoe is so much better than Chloe. See, I'm liking this number generator. Y'all are coming up with the good ones. Actually, not necessarily, well, they are good ones, but They're good ones specifically for me because I agree with them. Not really controversial in my eyes. Anyway, next one is 477. Favorite season, probably season 5 because it was the most interesting with things like Adrian and Marinette finally getting together. Also, Ladybug finally was able to get back all the Miraculous, but kind of left her with the most trauma. That's so real. Oh god. Okay, this is the controversial one. Gabe is a great character. Hawkmoth slash Gabe is a character with depths and an interesting backstory I want more of. I also think he shouldn't have been killed off. I wish they had kept him alive for him to help Marinette and Adrian in future seasons, and for him to repair his relationship with Adrian and to become a better father because God knows he was terrible. Okay, so yeah, that's controversial in my opinion. Moving on, we have 1646. And the first response is probably the first season because of how silly and fun it was for me to watch when I was young. I never liked Adragami. Kagami deserved better. Same! And like the thing for me is like I hated Adragami, but I always loved them aesthetically. I remember saying that so often. People would ask me all the time if I liked Adragami or not, and I would be like, I don't, but I love them aesthetically. Like, I don't know why. That's probably why I'm such a big Feeligami stan, to be honest, because I feel like it was just their personalities. Aesthetically wise, loved them. Personality wise, they didn't fit. So I guess when Feeligami came along, I was like, this is like Adragami, but better. Like, they fit aesthetically and personality wise. Loved it. Okay, next up is 512. Season 6 because Marinette is flopping and Gabriel's dead. Okay, that Marinette should tell Adrian the truth about his father, hashtag Team Alia. Yeah, I feel like that's not really controversial. 942. Aw, okay, I like this one already. It says, season 5 because I love Feeligami plus emotion slash pretension. See, y'all are my people. Y'all are my people for real. And okay, this one just says, I don't really have any opinions that are controversial. I actually got so many responses that were like that. They were like, I don't know, or I don't really have any responses that are controversial. So, oh, hold up. This response was not generated, but I just saw the response. I just had to say this. Luca is overrated mainly because people say he was a better option for Marinette, which isn't true. If you think about Marinette as a character, gotta love a Lucanette hater. I don't necessarily think that Luca is overrated. I don't know. I used to be a really big Luca stan. Not really much anymore. Anyway, okay, I think we're gonna do just a couple more. 1741. I think I'm gonna like this response. So the season question says, season 5. I feel it sort of explains dilemmas and confirms things mentioned in previous seasons or amongst the fandom. So example, the whole Senti theory. The controversial opinion answer is quite long, so let's get into it. Alia is not a backstabber. Just because she crashed out in Revelator doesn't mean she isn't there for her best friend. And I'm tired of the people who say something along the lines of Alia being a fake friend. Alia has once fallen victim and believed Lila's manipulation, but when she came to the realization she was there for Marinette, she made a mistake, but that doesn't impact the friendship. She has the ability to be there for Marinette's sake. When Marinette told Alia she was Ladybug, Alia's reaction was sincere, maybe a little concerned for her well-being, but genuine. She isn't plotting anything against Marinette, and she is definitely not fake. I would definitely agree. I don't really understand the Alia hate, and like, especially with how the fandom reacted when Marinette was lying, like, y'all crashed out just as bad as she did, so I don't want to hear it. 443 is the next one. Oh my gosh, we keep going from like lower numbers to 1000s. Lower numbers to 1000s. It's very all over the place. The answer to the season is season 6, Marinette and Adrian. I feel that. Controversial opinion is Chloe doesn't deserve a redemption arc. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that one. Beautiful answers. Okay, this one is, we're finally in the 2000s. This one is 2037. Okay, so season 3 because of Cat Blanc. I don't like Marinette's friends besides Alia and Alex. Pretty controversial. Well, now I'm curious why. Not even Kagami? 588. So this one says season 4 because it was the beginning of all the drama, which, yeah. With how intense the show is now, it all kind of started with season 4, which is interesting. This one says Luca with Kagami wasn't bad. I think they mean like the idea of Luke Kagami isn't bad because they were never together. Lady Noir in its prime was better than Adrianette at the time. Yeah, season 1, 2, 3, that Lady Noir was prime, and Adrianette wasn't really that good. Okay, I think I'm gonna shy away from the season questions, and I just want to focus more on the controversial opinions. This one says, I don't know if it's controversial, but, and I'm so sorry, I don't really like Feeligami. I still think it's weird because he literally looks like Adrian. You know, to this person, I really hope that you watch my Lukagami versus Philogami video, and I hope your opinions have changed since then. This was just kind of funny. I love Marinette, but she's low-key toxic when it comes to boyfriends. She keeps leaving them with no reason, leaving the text on read. I mean, I don't think Marinette's toxic, but I kind of agree with that one, not gonna lie. Wait, this one is actually kind of controversial. Well, I guess not controversial, but just very unpopular. It says Aspect's costume 8. I mean, I agree, but it's just the mask that gets me. Like, if he had hair, it would definitely eat, but I feel like the reason why they didn't give him hair was because they knew we would like him too much if he did have hair. So we're like, nah, we gotta make it bad so that way we don't want him to have the Miraculous. Okay, this one's just cute. It says Felix deserves love. Yeah. Okay, this one says, I think they don't develop the ships very well, like Nina wanted to date Marinette and ends up dating Alia. In my opinion, the only side ship that has had good, slow development is Mark-Aniel, because they didn't know each other. They met, they had beef, they got over it. Then they became friends, and they've just been friends. But like, their relationship has just been slowly getting like more romantic. We haven't really seen very much of Mark-Aniel, but the scenes that we have had of them, it's just been like slowly more romantic. And then this season, they're not even together. Like, they're still in some kind of situationship, but like they're kind of dating. So I just feel like they're the only side ship that's been paid a lot of attention to. And like, it's the only one that's been very, very like slow progressing. I guess we could say that Julika and Rose is also very slow progressing, but we know a lot more about Mark-Aniel's relationship than we do with Julika and Rose, so that's the only reason why I just talk about Mark-Aniel. But every other ship is really, really fast, and I think the only one that it works well with is Philogami, which is probably controversial to a lot of people because everyone always thinks that Philogami happened too fast, but with Felix and Kagami's personality, it makes sense that they got together so fast and like things happened so fast. If things would have happened any slower, I feel like it wouldn't have made sense for them and their characters. I feel like the issue in terms of Philogami isn't how fast it happened, it's just there was obviously quite a lot of development that we just didn't see. They're holding hands at the end of Pretension, and then all of a sudden they're in love and dating and kissing and representation. Like, obviously there wasn't a lot of time between those two episodes, and I don't think that that is what's alarming to me. It's just like, we just saw none of it. Like, that's just what I hate. Anyway, plus I've already talked about it, but like, Kagami was always looking for the Felix and Adrian, so the fact that she met Felix and like instantly liked him, even though she was in love with Adrian, just makes sense because she was never in love with Adrian, she was only in love with Felix. So that stuff like makes sense. But with some of the other ships, it's like, but your character doesn't really fit that. Like, specifically Alia and Nina. I don't know. But yeah, I agree to an extent on this one. This one says, Violinette is toxic. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I swear, everywhere I go, everyone is always boasting about Violinette. Like, they just love them so much. The only way Violinette works is under, like, friendship circumstances. I really don't get why Violinette is such a big ship. It's crazy. This next one says, Philogami is better than Adrianette because they didn't take whole 5 seasons to start dating. I agree. Also, I just gotta come out and say it. Philogami is, like, one of the only really healthy relationships in the show. Especially compared to Adrianette, like, their relationship is so beautiful and so healthy, and like Adrianette, they're not at their prime right now, unfortunately. This one says Kagami is not a senti. I have some news for you. Thomas would disagree. Actually, not would, he does. Thomas does disagree. Okay, so the very, very last one that we are going to be reading for this episode is, I think Chloe needs a redemption arc and a full backstory. Honestly, I personally kind of feel like the writers did have a lot of ideas for Chloe and her character. Not necessarily just her redemption arc, because I don't know if they ever planned on having her have a redemption arc. I definitely do think that they did have a lot of ideas for her character, but I feel like overall they just realized that, maybe not realized, but they just wanted other characters to be more important, so she did kind of get sidelined, because I feel like there was kind of a lot of stuff about her backstory. I mean, we still didn't really know too much about her, but we knew quite a bit from past seasons, but I feel like they kind of just threw that out of the window, which, I mean, for me personally, I hate Chloe, so I don't care. Couldn't care less if they threw it out the window or not, but, I mean, I guess it'd be interesting. I don't know. I really don't like talking about Chloe, because it's so controversial to talk about her, and I don't know, maybe one of these days we'll do an in-depth video talking about Chloe and all of my opinions on her, but anyway, yeah, that is basically it for this episode. I'm so sorry. This episode has genuinely just been so all over the place. Like, I don't even know. That's what happens when we have a Friday style episode. It's just like probably the worst thing you've ever seen, and I couldn't care less. As always, I'm really sorry I wasn't able to go through every single response. I would have loved to not listen, but read everything that you guys said, but with 2,000 responses, it was almost impossible. But yeah, I hope you guys had fun diving into all of this stuff. I thought a lot of the things, like all the analytics and stuff, was really interesting. And yeah, I'm honestly really excited to do more tests and things on Google Forms because it's just like more stuff for me to look through and analyze and stuff. So anyway, that is that. I will see you guys next week with a little bit more of an interesting and more structured video. We're gonna go back to teaching next week, so make sure you guys stay tuned. And also, if you want to, make sure to check out the quiz that will be posted on Friday. Like I said, it will be about what we talked about in the last podcast episode. So if you're interested in having a little bit of fun and taking that quiz, testing, your knowledge on the things that we talked about last episode, make sure you check that out. And with that being said, that is everything I have. Class dismissed.